It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's time for another on-the-road edition of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, bringing you all the latest injury updates, fantasy breakdowns, and top 5 Stanley Cup threats. Thank you for joining us. Let's get right to it.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to your source for fantasy hockey news and degenerate gambling breakdowns. It's a Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, joined, as always, by my esteemed co-host, Mr. Steele Roden. It's your boy, Big Flip Livingstone. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. We are free and available across all platforms that you find your favorite and hottest content, and that, of course, includes YouTube. So make sure you're checking out all of the breakdowns that we have, and we have upcoming, because I'm fired up, Steele. The postseason is right around the corner. You and I alluded to it. I know you got some big announcements coming up for our maybe next year's fantasy draft. We want to talk about that, another league with our listeners. So Steele's got some news for you guys there. We've got a bunch of injury updates to get to. Laine, Duchene, Talbot. We're also got to talk about on today's show, before we get to big time bet, Steele, because I'm fired up for tonight's board. I'm going to be live at the Red Wings Penguins game. You know, I got some bets coming for that one. But this top 5 cup threat conversation, I think you and I are going to have a little bit of a differing of opinions on our top 5s. I got some updated cup odds. Let's get to it all, but why don't you take it away? A little shout out to our first ever Locked On Listener League, and we want to come bigger and better next year.
Yeah, exactly. We want to give a special shout out to everyone who participated in our first ever Fantasy Hockey League on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. So shout out to Ryan Jackson, Matt Westfall, Perry Mason, Brock C, Spencer Frame, Blake Creamer, Austin Malunas, Chris Tarr, Adam Gold, and Nelson Vaz for joining our first ever Fantasy Hockey League on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Mm-hmm. It's been an absolute blast so far this season. A little bit of back and forth banter with a few of you out there when we had our weekly matchups. And, a special congratulations to the 4 semifinalists moving forward in this week's matchup. Blake Creamer, Brock C, and Perry Mason, congratulations on making it to the semifinals. Blake Creamer, I'm coming out for you, buddy. It's a big matchup this week, so keep looking at your roster. Make sure you're starting your players, because it's going to be a crazy week, a crazy matchup in the semifinals for all of you guys. But yeah, special shout out to all of you guys. Thank you so much for joining. And like Flip said, we're looking at ways to improve for next season. More participants. We've already had a bunch of people reach out to us on YouTube, in our DMs on Twitter as well, wanting to participate for next year. So we're going to make a bigger participant, more people for next season's Locked On Fantasy Hockey League. Bigger payout as well. Maybe a different format, perhaps. We're going to talk about things over the next few months. All the details will be finalized later in the summer, closer to next season's fantasy hockey draft. But don't worry, keep your eyes locked and loaded on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, and you'll get all of those details. We really appreciate everyone that joined for this season.
And we've already had some interested people. Shout out to everyone dropping comments on the YouTube channel. Make sure the DMs are open. Shout out to everyone in the DMs. Seriously, I say it all the time. Steele and I do this show, obviously, because we like hockey and we love talking fantasy hockey. We do it for y'all. And to see these messages, to see the screenshots, Steele, Flip, thank you so much. I'm in the final. Steele, Flip, thank you so much. I'm in the semis. Straight up, it's not even about pumping our tires. That's what we're here to do. So to see that we're actually helping people, Steele, putting some loot in people's pockets, that gets me the most fired up about anything. I say fired up every episode. That really fires me up. So let's keep it going. Let's keep it going with the big time bets at the end of the show. Stay tuned for that. We're going to get to our top 5 cup threats as well. I got updated odds, but I want to talk about Laine, Duchene, and then Talbot. Let's kick it off with Laine, because I also read into this story, Steele. And when this guy is going, he can be very streaky and very, very good. And he's got a really good shot. He's got a big body. There's a lot to like about Laine's offensive game, but he just can't stay healthy. And he was hurt. I don't know if you saw this. He was hurt running a drill in practice, tricep injury. He's done for 2 to 4 weeks. I'm saying that's the season. 2 to 4 weeks. What's going on? Why is there even a 4-week expectation on this Columbus team when they're going to be playing golf in 4 weeks? So
Exactly.
So I don't know. Like, this is just fantasy news, right? Because this really doesn't mean anything for the Blue Jackets, but it could be a tough blow for one of those GMs in a final situation. Hit me with your take on Laine and this tricep strain, probably done for the year.
Yeah, there's a few guys in my fantasy league that I know have Patrick Laine. They're in the semifinals right now, so it's a huge loss. But that's just what this player goes through. And you said it yourself. Very streaky player. You don't really see points come in with, you don't really see him play a game with 1 assist or just 1 goal. It's usually multiple point games, and then he kind of creates a 7-game point streak going off of that, and then he slows down for a little bit. But to me, I'm relating this exactly to Jack Hughes. It's the same thing we've talked about with Jack Hughes for the last 2 years. They're pretty much the same player. The only difference is Laine is 6 inches taller and weighs 210 instead of 170. Because when he plays, he gets the point production offensively. He's got 52 points in 55 games, but he can't stay healthy. He plays for a month, and then he's injured for 2 to 3 weeks. He plays for a month, and then he's injured again for 2 to 3 weeks. So, again, this player, an absolute star in the league, when he's healthy, just can't stay healthy. It seems like the last 3 to 4 years now between Winnipeg and now the Columbus Blue Jackets. And again, we know, you said it, we know that this season has pretty much been a write-off since Werenski went down for the year. We knew that the season for the Columbus Blue Jackets was over at that point. They've had 5 guys on the IR for the last month and a half. They have
5 important guys.
Yeah, 5 important guys. They've got 4 more players day to day right now. So it's been a write-off again for the Columbus Blue Jackets pretty much when Zach Werenski was written off for the entire season. And again, now Laine's out. They've been struggling. This team could have gone a different direction if they had a healthy organized or a healthy roster, but they're looking forward to the summer. They're going to be on the golf. They're going to be golfing soon, and they got to move forward for next season. They need all of these players healthy because Johnny Gaudreau didn't sign here for no reason. He's there for a reason. You've got Laine, you've got Werenski, you've got a couple of young pieces there.
Yes, all true. But what about the chances now that they have the best ones to land a little player named Connor Bedard? Connor Bedard slots into that mix with the Boone Jenners, Patrick Laine's, and Johnny Gaudreau's of the world. You and I are going to have a couple of conversations about Connor Bedard because it deserves probably a whole episode or maybe 2. Yes. So we're not going to get to the Bedard, but I had that thought when I was thinking about Columbus today is maybe this is a blessing in disguise for their end of the season. And obviously GMs fantasy-wise, it takes a hit because Laine's also over the last 3 games, he went beast mode. I think he's got like 6 or 7 or 8 points over the last 3 games. So if you were really heating up fantasy-wise, this is obviously one of those things that you're going to have to hurdle. Laine is just a player that I think if he could stay healthy. We haven't even seen the best of him yet, aside from maybe that second season in Winnipeg where he went off when he had like 40 or 50 goals. Anyway, Laine, another tough injury blow for the Columbus Blue Jackets. We got more injury updates. Let's get to Duchene very quick, and then maybe we'll come back from the break and we'll wrap it up with Talbot. But, he's got a busted hand now, Steele. Took a shot against the Leafs. I think it was Dante Fabro's slapper. And again, the Nashville Predators on the outside looking in, but this is one of those things that now fantasy GMs and the Nashville Predators playoff hopes just took a shot, in the hand. Oh, man, I'm not even going to try and go there. 22 goals, 34 assists for Duchene this year. Hit me with your take on this situation and what you think this might mean actually now for Nashville.
Yeah, it looked bad right away. He skated off right down the tunnel. There was no question that he wasn't coming back to that game. And yeah, you said it. He's out for
week is what he's listed
week,
at, by
week
the way.
to week. He's probably done for the rest of the season. To be honest, like that's just the straight point here with the Matt Duchene injury. And with this injury, the Nashville Predators season is over. I think it's complete. It's wrapped up. They've got the most games remaining, but they have the hardest schedule moving forward as well. They've been without Philip Forsberg now for the last month and a bit. They have 4 more guys on the IR. They don't even have Roman Josi. Again, it's been a little bit of a regression season for UC Saros, Philip Forsberg, Roman Josi, Matt Duchene, a lot of those top guys. They've been battling and struggling and fighting all season long. It just hasn't panned out the way. I thought this team was going to be a dark horse in the playoffs. Too. I thought they were going to be a top 5 team in the NHL. It just hasn't panned out that way from the get-go of the beginning of the season. So, I think it's wrapped up for both. I think it's wrapped up for both the Nashville Predators and Matt Duchene. I don't think we see them in the playoffs, and I don't think we see Duchene for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and again, I think I mentioned on Monday's episode that at this time of year, you're hoping to not make any waiver wire moves or juggle your lineup too much at all because it's gotten you here for a reason. If you're a Duchene owner, when I see week to week, again, when there's 3.5 weeks and change or whatever it is on the season, he's done for the year. And if it's a broken hand or any kind of bone in the hand for a guy who plays the finesse sniper game, it's not like he's bandaging it up and getting it done otherwise. He's all hands, baby. And you know what? Yossi has had his down season after an amazing one the year before. But Matt Duchene is amazing. He's a really important piece. Sorry, was what I was going to say. 22 goals and 34 assists this year. Second on the team in points. Leads the team in goal scoring. This is just obviously a critical blow to a team that doesn't score a lot of goals already, Steele. So that's where I think I fully agree with you on. This is just a hurdle that they can't overcome. We're going to get to Cam Talbot very quickly around the break. I'm very excited to talk about our top 5 cup threats. And, of course, big-time bets. I'm going to be live for the Penguins Detroit Red Wings game tonight. Might have a couple of live picks on the Twitter feed as well, so make sure you're tapped into the Twitter feed. And make sure if you're making any bets along with us tonight for Tuesday's action, make sure you're checking out FanDuel because today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NCAA tournament is heating up, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a no-sweat first bet to up to $1,000. That's $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't hit. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and sign up today to claim your no-sweat first bet. Then you can wager on everything from the money line to point spreads to which team will be cutting down the net, all on the app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. Don't miss out on your shot at a no-sweat first bet for up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. Make every moment more with FanDuel.
I just learned Discover credit cards do something pretty awesome. At the end of your first year, they automatically double all the cash back you've earned. That's right, everything you earned doubled. All the cash back from eating at your favorite soup dumpling restaurant doubled. All the cash back from that trip where you sort of learned to snowboard also doubled. And the best part, you don't have to do anything ridiculous to get it. Nope, Discover does it automatically. Seriously though, see terms and check it out for yourself at discover.com/match.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Don't forget, we are free and available on your favorite podcast platform, including YouTube. So make sure you hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. We appreciate all the love, all the support that you guys show us every single day. We are going to get to big time bets at the end of the episode. Let's wrap up some injury news. A player returning potentially later this week, Cam Talbot, could be ready as soon as Thursday to back up for the Ottawa Senators, maybe even start. We don't know yet, but he was seen in full gear and on the practice team for Monday with the Ottawa Senators. So he's back. This is big news for the Ottawa Senators as they make a late push for the postseason. Obviously, just the other day, Matthew Tkachuk, Brady Tkachuk, big matchup between the two brothers. Again, we don't know what the outcome is because we are recording early right now. But if the Ottawa Senators win that game, it inches them even closer to the second wild card spot. And getting Cam Talbot back in the crease is big news.
Yeah, I think it is big news. And again, it's just one of those players that I think a lot of GMs would have kept stashed on the IR, or, if you had a lot of reserve spots, held on to, because the Ottawa Senators, as much as they had their up and downs, they're a good team. And you would have expected when he came back from the last injury, when you and I talked about him getting the run out for this key stretch of games for the Senators, and you and I both really buying into them winning a lot of those games. And not only do they end up losing a lot of them, but he also gets hurt in the process. It's been a bit of a mess all year for the Senators in terms of not being able to fully hit their stride with that lineup. I think you and I can both agree on we haven't seen the best from this team yet. So maybe they go on a special heater here, Steele, because he was also really good before he got hurt, winning 3 straight games, save percentage well in the 900s. Hey, GM-wise, I don't know what this means for the Senators. I'm with you that it's huge news because fantasy GMs, this is important. I just don't know. Like, the Senators don't have it left in them, do they? Like, they're going to have to win out, basically. Like, they're going to have to win,
it's going to be close. It's going to be close. They're pretty much going to have to win 90% of their remaining games, and they've got a tough schedule as it is. I think they're top 10 in the toughest remaining schedules for NHL teams, but they have a chance. They're not mathematically eliminated.
And there's a chance.
We're saying there's a chance, baby. All Senators fans out there. But look, like, this is big news because they need the starting goaltender. Yeah, some of their prospect goalies like Ferguson and Mendeleze and Sogard have provided in the absence.
How good was that Ferguson story?
How many goalies have they gone through? This is like their fifth goalie or sixth goalie they're on this year. But all the prospects that they've brought up for goalie wise have produced as much as you could expect from those guys. And Dylan Ferguson in 100. That first game was absolutely incredible. So they've gotten the job done in the absence. But if you have Cam Talbot and he's fully healthy, you got to start him. And for any fantasy owners out there, if he's on the waiver wire, maybe pick him up if he can help you.
Worth a shot.
Worth a shot. So I think it's great news for the Senators. They still have a chance.
I'm with you, and I'm just going to leave it at this deal. And I don't even need. I think you're going to agree with me. But if the Ottawa Senators have been able to do what they've done, and they've rotated in 6 goaltenders, usually when you hear a stat like that of a goaltending carousel, the team's in dead last or floating around the last couple of spots. So the fact that this team cycled in 5 or 6 goaltenders, a number of which had 5 or less NHL games under their belt, that's just a testament to this team and where this team is headed. So we've been saying it, but keep it tapped on that for maybe a future's better too in the future on this Senators team. Speaking of which, Steele, let me dust off my list here. And I got it written down pen and paper today, pal. I'm on the road. Shout out to Dearborn, Michigan. But let me just say this very quickly. This top 5 cup threat team, you and I have not discussed this. You got your 5, I got my 5. Do you want me to start or should you start? Because I have a feeling this might be a controversial conversation, not only for you and I, but I'm ready for the heat from our listeners on my 5 choices. So you let me know.
You start us off. You start us off hot and heavy right now.
Hot and heavy. Okay, here it comes, pal. Number 5, and I'm going to start out just to make you a little bit even more annoyed right off the bat. I'm going to cop out and give my number 5. It's 2 teams, okay? And number 5A, and this is where it's going to start for you, I think. It's the Carolina Hurricanes. And I understand that they're at the top of the Eastern Conference right now. I get it. But this team can't score goals. And I think they're one injury away from literally not being an offensive threat at all. Sebastian Aho also has not brought confidence to me, and I really like his game. But he seems to be shying away from these opportunities to establish himself as an offensive piece. And now I'm getting a little bit worried, Steele. So if their goaltenders can't absolutely stand on their head, and we know the blue line is going to be there, I'm worried about them going, because when I look at these other teams I have on my list, they bring the ruckus on the offensive end. And I know the playoffs get tighter. It can be defense first, but if you can't score a clutch goal and you got injuries up front to Svechnikov, Pacioretty, and all others, I'm worried. So anyway, 5 is the Carolina Hurricanes / Toronto Maple Leafs. Toronto Maple Leafs at plus 900 are getting into the top 5 spots, Steele. I'm not coming on today and not getting the Leafers in there because they're playing a different brand of hockey. And if they can get some goaltending, and I know that's a big if, at plus 900, they're worth a look, and that team is deadly out front.
I completely agree. I have the Toronto Maple Leafs just 1 spot ahead, so I'll get to them. I don't want to go into too much detail because we're definitely going to be talking about this top 5 list next week or closer to the playoff time when it gets closer to postseason. But at number 5, I actually have a team who's still battling for a playoff spot right now. They're in the first wild card spot, and that's the New York Islanders. I have the New York Islanders as the 5th best team to win the Stanley Cup this season, and especially if they're able to get Matthew Barzal back, which he should be back very, very soon, I believe.
Is that a for sure thing?
I believe he was week to week. Now he's day to day, so it seems like he's getting closer. Maybe they hold off until the last couple of games just to get him back into skating form. Not that he's lost it, but nonetheless. I have the New York Islanders.
Game shape.
Pretty much. I'll tell you this. I don't even have the Carolina Hurricanes on my list here. They're not even.
So you appreciate my take.
I appreciate your pick there with the Carolina Hurricanes because they're not even on my list. And for everything that you said for the Hurricanes, I have for the New York Islanders. I think they have an absolute stud, actually 2 studs in the crease in Sorokin and Varlamov. I absolutely love their defensive group. And Pelech and Mayfield, Romanov, Dobson, and Pulak as well. I love their defensive group. We know how stingy and hard it is to get past them.
Crew in the NHL.
Very underrated group. And then, the offensive ability there is the question mark. But I think once you get Barzal back in the lineup, you've got Horvat, Anders Lee, Hudson Fashing's been great as well recently. I've really liked Pierre Engvall when he was with the Leafs. So hopefully he transfers that and continues that this season for the Islanders. And then, look, You've got Cal Clutterbuck, you've got Matt Martin, you've got Casey Zizekas, Jean-Gabriel Pageau, guys who are willing to put their body on the line no matter what it is. I think they've got all the right portions there. Again, it just comes down to the offense. And then at number 4, I've got the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think they deserve to be number 4 on this list. Time and time again, we know, there's the big statement, big thing over the Leafs. Can they get past the first round? Hopefully they can. But if you just look at the team on paper, the moves that they made at the trade deadline, I love the fact that they've got Luke Shen back on the blue line, that he brings a little bit of a enforcer attitude. You've got a lot of other guys on the bottom 6, like Zach Aston, Reese, Sam Lafferty, who are very aggressive in their forechecking abilities. And then we all know the rest. We all know the rest with the superstars, Morgan Riley, Matthews. So I'm not going to go down the list, but they're at number 4, the Toronto Maple Leafs for me.
Okay. There's going to be a lot to unpack at the end of this conversation.
Yes, there is.
And we're already running long in the tooth on time. Why don't you take us to break, and I'll hit you with my 4, 3, and 2 so fast it's going to make your head spin. And I think you're going to like my number 1 pick. Carolina, though. I think, you and I came on this show a lot at the start of the year, and we really liked their game for obvious reasons.
Yep.
So good defensively. And now, look, all of a sudden, no steal because – Leafs, Rangers, Bruins, Avalanche, Oilers. These are teams that don't need to worry about scoring. And when you throw in the Carolina Hurricanes, I'm just worried about lack of firepower. So that's where I'm at. I'm glad we're on the same page. Take us to break, and then we got the rest of this list and big-time bets.
In the World Baseball Classic Finals, Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout gave Angels fans a showdown they won't forget.
And it's a swing and a miss, a strikeout to end the game, and good grief, what a celebration.
A week into NFL free agency, we still don't know where Lamar Jackson will be playing in 2023.
It's almost like we've heard so many different things, but at the same time, we've heard a lot of nothing.
And the Pittsburgh Penguins desperately need to string together some wins if they want to keep playoff hopes alive.
Time's ticking. A playoff streak is in the balance. We're going to see what they're made of these final 12 games.
Catch up on all these stories by listening to the latest episodes of Locked On Angels, Locked On Ravens, and Locked On Penguins. Then listen to Locked On's new series, Paving the Way. Each episode highlights a different voice from across the network, a Locked On host whose journey in the industry has helped pave the way toward creating a more inclusive and diverse media landscape. That's Paving the Way, presented by State Farm. Available now on the Locked On Presents podcast feed.
I'm excited for the rest of your list, and thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Don't forget, we are free and available on your favorite podcast platform, including YouTube. So hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. We appreciate all the love, all the support from our listeners out there tuning in every single day. Flip, take us away, baby. Who is number 4, number 3, and number 2 on the top 5 Stanley Cup contender list?
First of all, number 4 and number 3 right now at the odds that they're getting. And I'm going to start with the Edmonton Oilers because you and I, again, I can't come on this show as much as I have spoken about making futures bets on the Edmonton Oilers because just of the fact alone that they have Connor McDavid and not come on here and put them in this top 5 cup threats list. And actually, let me back it up with this. I almost loaded up on Western Conference teams as my top 3. Just because of how wide open it is. Because when I tried to talk about the Bruins, the Rangers, the Leafs, the Tampa Bay Lightning, that Eastern Conference is going to be a bloodbath by the end. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many good teams that are going to be left out that almost like betting sense, getting better odds with the West, you'd be better off putting 10, 20, 30 bucks on all of the Western Conference because your team might get from 8th all the way to the Cup final. That's my opinion on that. So number 4 at plus 1,300 steal, the Edmonton Oilers. And if they can get a shred of goaltending, this team will be in the Cup final through the West. They have everything it takes to be the best team in the West, I'm got no love for the Vegas Golden Knights. So I'm interested with your take if they're on your list, because you know me, I haven't shown them any love, and I've been proven wrong. They're the first in the division for a reason, but I'm just not there. And if you're okay with it, I'll hit you with my third very quickly. It's the Blue Shirt Podcast, baby, and the Rangers haven't even hit their stride yet. And at plus 1,200, lurking with a very, very good team. And I'm seeing a lot of disrespect thrown on Igor Shesterkin this year after the guy has been absolutely lights out and clearly the best goaltender in the league over the last 2 seasons. And to me, your pick with, who did you say also was your fifth?
New York Islanders and then Toronto Maple Leafs.
So Sorokin and Shesterkin are the 2 best goalies in the league. So when you have quality goaltenders like that, anything can happen. So for me, the Rangers at 3 at plus 1,200, I had to go with them because still, in my opinion, Igor Shesterkin is the best goaltender in the league. They got Tarasenko and they got Kane. They're just as good as anyone up front. And you know how I feel about that blue line. And to me, the main point here is the Rangers haven't hit their full stride yet. And I think they're rounding into form at the most opportune time. That's all I got to say about that, Steele. Plus 1,200, the Rangers are going to be right there in the mix as the best 4 teams in the league this year.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm the exact opposite of you, actually. Four of the teams in my top 5 are from the Eastern Conference. And, I understand the point of how wide open the Western Conference is.
Just from betting perspective.
Completely understand. You could be the 8th team in the last team to make that
threats, though, in terms of quality, I'm here for this.
Completely understand. But yeah, you could be that second wild card team in the playoffs and make it to the Stanley Cup Finals, potentially in the Western Conference because it's so wide open. But even if you're that team, I don't think any team from the Western Conference besides the Colorado Avalanche win the Stanley Cup. That's the third team I have as the Cup contenders, the Colorado Avalanche. That to me, even with the Edmonton Oilers, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, again, it all depends on goaltending. Even with that, even if the Edmonton Oilers make it to the Stanley Cup Finals, they either have to go against the Bruins, they either have to go against the Rangers, they either have to go against the Lightning, they either have to go. There's too many juggernaut teams in the Eastern Conference. To me, it doesn't matter which team from the West makes it. I think the Stanley Cup ends up coming back to the Eastern Conference this season. And so for me at number 3 is Colorado because they're the defending Stanley Cup champions. They have to be on the list. They've got absolute studs. If they're able to get Landeskog and a bunch of those guys that have been injured all season fully healthy, they're the number 3 team. At number 2, I have the New York Rangers for everything that you said.
Hey,
a lot of their offensive production comes from the top 2 lines, and that's exactly why they went out and got Kane and Tarasenko. But you've still got deadly bottom 6 players as well. Lafreniere, Kakko, and Hedl. Tyler Mott. I love Tyler Mott and what he brings to the game as well. You look at the blue line, it's an absolute juggernaut, 6'5" beast in Trouba and Nico Mikkola. Adam Fox is an absolute stud. You got Harper and Schneider. DeAndre Miller, 6'4". They're beasts. It's incredible what the Rangers have been able to bring forth this season. So they're the number 2 team. And then I'm not even going to go to detail on number 1. It's the Boston Bruins for obvious reasons. Again, I'm not going to go into detail. We know what they've done in the regular season. I'll leave it at that.
Plus 380 for the Bruins, who slide in at my number 2 spot, Steele. And at plus 700, if Gabriel Landeskog can come back for this team, it will not only bring more balance and value on the ice, it will be such a spiritual, in-the-room, uplifting moment that I say this Colorado Avalanche team rolls through the Western Conference. And I'm going to say that the Colorado Avalanche get to the final. It's a coin flip against any team in the East. And that's no disrespect to how good the East has been this year. The Colorado Avalanche still deserve that respect on their name. I believe you made the good point to me when we talked about deep cup threats a while back, that they're still the Stanley Cup champion. And until that loses, they should be right there in the mix. So Bruins at 2 for me at plus 300. Avs at plus 700 are going to get a little bit of love from me, and I'll leave it at this. I'm going to rock with Cale Makar, Bowen Byram, and Devin Tays, that trio, against any in the league. And then you couple in the season that Alexander Georgiev is having, and I'm comfortable throwing a little 20 or a 25 piece at plus 700 Steele and just enjoy the ride, because I think the Colorado Avalanche and the Edmonton Oilers are on a crash collision course for that Western Conference final. That would be my prediction there on that side of things.
Yeah, and that's an exact repeat again from last year's Western Conference Finals. Avalanche sweep them in the Western Conference Finals, so could be a repeat that way, but again, could be a toss-up because both teams are absolutely phenomenal. Let's get over to big time bets, though. We're gonna have to do top 5 Cup contenders for a full episode later, closer to the postseason. But let's get to big time bets, where the money is made. Getting short on time here, so we'll wrap things up very, very nicely. If you don't mind, I'll just list off all 3 of my bets real quick.
Please do.
First pick of the night. I'm taking the Sharks on the puck line plus 1.5 against the Winnipeg Jets. I have not been impressed with the Winnipeg Jets down the stretch. They've lost games to the LA Kings, to the St. Louis Blues. They barely beat the Anaheim Ducks and the Arizona Coyotes this past week as well. I just haven't been impressed. Kyle Connor has not been Kyle Connor the last 3 weeks. He's been a ghost. So is Scheifele. So have been a lot of those other guys. So I'm going to take the Sharks puck line plus 1.5 against the Winnipeg Jets. That's my first pick. Second pick of the night. I'm taking the Rangers on the puck line against the Blue Jackets. I think that's just the easy pick. Without Laine, they don't really have much of an offensive group to go on. And the Rangers are absolutely loaded. So I've got the Rangers on the puck line. 3-1, 4-2 type of game. Nothing too serious or overbearing crooked numbers. My lock of the night, you speak of those Vegas Golden Knights. I'm taking the Oilers on the money line against those Vegas Golden Knights. In the last 10 matchups, they have been close games. The Oilers are 6-4-0 in those last 10 matchups. A lot of one-goal games, so I was thinking about the puck line, but a lot of one-goal games, so I'm going to stick with the Oilers on the money line. This will be a statement game against the Vegas Golden Knights, because if you look at that Pacific Division and how well each of those top 3 teams are doing, Golden Knights are 8-2-0 in their last 10 on a 4-game win streak. Kings are 8-0-2 on a 3-game win streak, and the Oilers are 7-2-1, and they lost their last game. So all 3 teams are firing right now, but this is a statement game for the Oilers to show that they are for real this season.
I agree wholeheartedly, and thank you for bringing that up, Steele. That is going to be a fun one to watch, and now you've piqued my interest, because I actually didn't realize how critical that game is, and you know me with my futures bets on the Oilers, so that you piqued my interest big time. I have alluded to it a couple times. I'm headed to the game tonight between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Red Wings, my first trip to Little Caesars Arena. I'm excited to get me in a little American eats here. Any of our listeners in Michigan, hit us in the comments. Where do I need to be going for a pre or post beer? Any of you Michigan fans, holler at us. Red Wings fans as well. I got the triple dip, big flip triple dip. Tuesday is a 10-game board steal. There's some tricky spots, but I'm zeroing in on this Penguins Red Wings game because the Pens had that big win against the Washington Capitals.
Yeah.
I think I alluded to the fact too that Sidney Crosby doesn't miss many opportunities when his team needs him against bad teams to just absolutely carry them to victories. And I have won some pretty good money betting on Sidney Crosby. So, big flip triple dip to wrap this up very quickly. Penguins at Red Wings. Pens on the money line, minus 210. I'm going to same game parlay these 3 together, Steele. So, no, I'm not betting minus 210 straight up and down, although if I had a big chunk of money in my pocket, the Penguins aren't going to lose this one. So, anyway, keep that caveat in mind. Penguins, money line, minus 210. Before their last game against the Red Wings, the Penguins had taken wins in 9 straight games against the Red Wings. Little hiccup in the road, revenge game. I've been on the revenge games all week, and it's been working. Penguins, money line, minus 210. Second pick, Steele. Maybe the one that I'm a little bit worried about, but I think this is just going to be a straight dust show. By the Penguins, I'm going under, and let me tell you why. 5 of the last 5 straight games for the Penguins on the road, under. 8 of the last 11 visits when going to Detroit have actually gone over the number, but this is playoffs on the line. So I'm going to lean under, and for the lock of the night, I'm going with Crosby. Held pointless in his last game, so I love those bounce back angles because you're going to get a better odd. Held pointless against Washington, he's going to come back in a big way. And in his career, I love these numbers, Steele. 30 regular season games against the Red Wings, 4-game winning goals, 14 goals, 21 assists. Give me the Sid. Anytime Apple, Lock of the night. I'll be betting that one separately, but thank me later and parlay all three of those together. Same game parlay on FanDuel, and let's bang out.
Definitely going to be same game parlaying those three picks together. Penguins and Red Wings. Anytime assist from Sidney Crosby almost hits every single time. That is Flip's lock of the night. My lock of the night, Oilers money line against the Vegas Golden Knights. Make sure you're putting your picks down, placing your bets for every single pick that Flip and I just suggested, if you're feeling them. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. For your second listen, though, check out Game to Game. Every moment, every performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NHL with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. And thank you again so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets out there and your weeks in the playoffs for fantasy hockey. And we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.
In the World Baseball Classic Finals, Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout gave Angels fans a showdown they won't forget.
And it's a swing and a miss, a strikeout to end the game, and good grief, what a celebration.
A week into NFL free agency, we still don't know where Lamar Jackson will be playing in 2023.
It's almost like we've heard so many different things, but at the same time, we've heard a lot of nothing.
And the Pittsburgh Penguins desperately need to string together some wins if they want to keep playoff hopes alive.
Time's ticking. A playoff streak is in the balance. We're going to see what they're made of these final 12 games.
Catch up on all these stories by listening to the latest episodes of Locked On Angels, Locked On Ravens, and Locked On Penguins. Then listen to Locked On's new series, Paving the Way. Each episode highlights a different voice from across the network, a Locked On host whose journey in the industry has helped pave the way toward creating a more inclusive and diverse media landscape. That's Paving the Way, presented by State Farm. Available now on the Locked On Presents podcast feed.